You're welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. There has been a wave of corruption cases threatening to swamp, if you like, overwhelm the administration of President Bola Tinubu so early in the life of that government. Admittedly, a good number of those high-profile cases were inherited, but with governance taken to be a continuum, such cases are considered an integral part of everyday governance landscape. What are the aesthetics looking like? Has the president and his team shown a sleight of hand that suggests seriousness to tackle official corruption? And what recommendations can be made for the administration in this direction? We're now being joined for a chat by Professor Nwaokobia, who is a lawyer, public and policy analyst, and the convener, Country First Movement. Good morning, Chris, and Happy New Year to you. Good to have you on the show with us.
Good morning, Steve.
Good morning.
Happy New Year to you, Steve. It's my pleasure to be here.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Chris. Well, let's talk. The last time you were on the show, I believe that was in December or thereabout last year, what we did was to have a critical look at the 7 months of the Asiwaju Bola Tinubu's government. Today, there are other issues in the land, and you know that corruption and allegations of corruption within the cabinet or affecting a few of the cabinet members, you know, is high on the scale. The president is out of town at the moment, but you know that part of what he has done, at least before he left on a private visit to France, was to set up a committee in addition to suspending the former minister, or shall we say the suspended minister for humanitarian affairs, and to set up a committee headed by the coordinating minister for the economy, Wale Edun, to look at the remote causes and make recommendations to government. The report is still being awaited. But then how will you assess what the president has done so far? And if you think that this is the direction that he should be taking at a time that a lot of people might be worried that does he have the willingness and the capacity to deal with internal corruption within his government?
Steve, it's my pleasure to be here.
Thank you.
Let me start by saying clearly that we were together here on the 31st of December, and we talked about quite a lot of issues ranging from the events of 2023 to making postulations as to what we expect of 2024. And then I used the word, for most people, 2023 would be annus horribilis. And I said that Nigerians will want a better 2024 where things work. And interestingly, we're here talking about, because what has been the issue since this year started has been one tale of corruption after another. It's been one tale of larceny after another. It's been one tale of malfeasance, corruptible, and corrupt tendencies of office holders after another. But let me very boldly and clearly state here that there was an action of Mr. President that was very laudable. I think he took it in the month of September or so when he appointed a private special investigator, to look at the CBN and allied agencies, so as to perhaps, if you like, recover funds, ensure that there's due process, ensure that there is order in the economy. Because if I would borrow a phraseology from the immediate past president, if this country doesn't kill corruption, corruption will kill this country. And that's actually what it's been. It's been one cesspit, one cesspool after another. But I do not want to hasten to say that our president hasn't been doing anything in that direction. I think that clearly he has taken a few laudable steps, but there are fundamental things to be done. I will not just lampoon government. I will make prognosis and postulations as to what can be done to make the fight against corruption effective, efficient, and effectual. But what we must do first is ensure that we do less of media trial, less of banal dramas and dramaturgy. Because since former President Olusegun Obasanjo signed the EFCC law into law, we have had several henchmen at the top of the EFCC and then the ICPC. But what we have seen in close to about 22 years of the operations of the EFCC and the ICPC has been majorly media trial, dramaturgy. We have recovered this, and in actuality you find out that nothing truly has been recovered. I want to say that from the days of Ribadu to Waziri, Lamode, Magu and Bawa, it's been media trial and dramaturgy. And then, unfortunately, what we have today appears like we're walking the same old road. And that's why I love the word you used, aesthetics of the fight against corruption. Because save and accept will make the fight against corruption professional, effective, efficient, and effectual. The average Nigerian who is saying, oh, this country is so corrupt, and is not seeing monuments of reference, that's those who are actually, apart from yesterday we heard about Farouk Lawan, the judgment that came from the Supreme Court. Apart from just a few tidbits, you ask yourself, those who are alleged to have stolen monumental resources from our country, remember one Yakubu that was the MD CEO of the NNPC and funds that were found, and how so many of those cases have gone under the carpet. You know, you ask yourself, are Nigerians inclined to this media dramaturgy, you know? And the answer is a capital letter no. I am, by God's grace, the convener of the Country First movement, and we have representatives and offices across the country. And we deal with issues of corruption and allied issues because we understand that our country must work. And Steve, you know me pretty well. I am a die-in-the-wool believer in the Nigerian project. So for me to say that Mr. President must look inwards and rework the fight, the protocol of the fight against corruption, it's basically the reason I'm here. You know, we're not interested in seeing Jim or Baze regale us in the media about how 4 trillion has been returned to federal government by Emefiele, and in actuality, no such money has been returned. We're not excited about the media trial of so many people. We're interested in seeing discreet, professional, and effective battle against corruption. Because we have seen, remember, Steve, that Magu told us that at some point, 2.3 trillion had been recovered. And then when the Bawa, the young man who just left, came, they told us that the monies that have been paid back to the Federation account as recovered monies was not more than 50 billion. And so you ask yourself, what's the difference between 2-point-something trillion and 50 billion? So enough of the dramaturgy. Our dear president must discreetly, effectively, and proficiently and professionally fight corruption. We have this is the age of technology. Steve, this is not the time to dance in the market square. We have the Treasury single account regime. Give full effect to it. We have, Steve, with all sense of respect, the BVN. We hear that people are moving billions and trillions from one account to the other. What happened to the BVN protocol? You know, there must be the political will to get the job done. If you want to fight corruption, we must fight it as though the life of this country depends on it. You know, so I am not excited about the Edu Gate. That's the Better Edu story. I'm not excited about the several gates that we're beginning to have now. What bothers me really is what we do with the fight against corruption. As I talked to you, Steve, just a few months ago, we had a press conference talking about what had happened at the level of the NNPC. We talked about an indicting court order from an Abuja High Court asking the present, because he was returned as the group managing director of NNPC Limited, even after the humongous and monumental issues raised about certain 48 million barrels of crude oil stolen and sold in China, even after the issues about 52 million barrels of crude oil that Leonard Silk, Femi Falana, talked about, stolen and sold in Pennsylvania. All these are monies that are enough to wipe out local debts and international debts. Nobody's talking about it. But you know what? Somehow I do not understand. He was returned as the MD CEO of the NNPC Limited. Those are one of the issues that we should look at. And as I talk to you, Steve, there are issues coming from the National Population Commission where billions of naira, allegedly, and you have seen it in the papers, over 120 billion has been allegedly siphoned at the level of... These are issues that the government and indeed Nigerians should look at. Steve, what about the stories coming out in the news about certain governmental operators who are living far below board? I think that what we must do before Jim or Baze, the special investigator, and his people in the media take us on another detour away from truth, is that Mr. President must call him and several other agencies fighting against corruption to order and tell them that what we want is result, not media trial, not dramas and dramaturgy. Nigerians are tired of having, a former governor was convicted and sent to Kuje. A few weeks after, he leaves his political party and joins another political party, and the matter has been reviewed, is being reviewed. You have a whole lot of them. Mr. President must do something fundamentally important. Call the special investigator to order and tell him that I want results, not media dramaturgy.
All right, I'd like
then for those who, and then tell the EFCC. Yeah, go on.
All right, I'd like to come in here, and I like that you have been able to set the tone of this conversation in regards to the aesthetics of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's fight against corruption. Now, the APC Governors Forum had cautioned against making conclusive judgments on Betta Adu's faith. However, one cannot overlook the connection between the National Social Investment Program Agency and the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs, because it raises concerns about systemic corruption. I mean, just a couple of weeks ago, we saw the EFCC, call in the ex-humanitarian affairs minister over an alleged 37.1 billion naira fraud. Now, with the ongoing forensic investigations into alleged corruption within the ministry, now outside of Edu's suspension, how can President Tinubu ensure that the probe is thorough and impartial? What structural changes do you believe are necessary to prevent such issues in the future? Because like you've said, it's about how the Nigerian people see the Nigerian government. There's already this aesthetics that, that's what is going to be the order of the day. But how can we change that, Professor Chris?
Thank you for that question. Do more of media trial, do less of media trial, and more of discreet, professional, proficient and effective investigation before you make issues of corruption the dance in the market square. Do more of proactive, because look at our regime. Look at what happens across our country. If we don't stop this drama, those who are allegedly corrupt will continue to subvert the process. I think the Nigerians are tired of, and like you noted, the Edugate, I'd rather call it the Edugate. What are the issues? We've heard so much in the media, but less about the nitty-gritty. We've heard so much. I've asked people, can under our law, a minister, a permanent secretary, a DG pay monies to private accounts. Some have said that if it is for a job, it can be done. Some have said you have to establish that there are no personal interests. And I think that fundamentally, what we must do going forward, because I rather a thief is caught than there's so much noise about someone, the likelihood of a thief around, and at the end of the day, nothing is done about that thief. And at the end of the day, the thieving continues. So I think that the time has come for us as a people, and that's where my advice is located. I stumbled on the details of the letter of appointment that was given to Jim Obaze, the special investigator on the affairs concerning the CBN and allied agencies. And in that letter, words like professionally handle the brief and report to me, you shall report to me, that's the president saying, every week were used. But you know what? Rather than effectively getting this job handled, we're getting daily reports in the market square. And what hurts and bothers the carapace of my mind, Sheito, is the fact that as you and I talk today, everybody thinks that 4 trillion naira has been recovered from Emefiele, and there's no such money anywhere. There's so much monies everywhere. Mentioned in the public space, we have heard about billions and trillions associated, if you like, to the chief of staff to the president. We have heard about billions and hundreds of millions in the Edugate. We've heard so many things. And the question is how proficiently and effectively, because it shouldn't be like we have so many governors who allegedly stolen from our collective till. And so many of these governors are back in the Senate because of lack of diligent prosecution, because of lack of proper investigation, because the fight against corruption, as it were, is basically a media issue than a professional issue. And so if we must stop this order, this theatrics, this age of dance in the market square, and save our country and recover resources that truly will make our country better, then we must be more discreet, more professional, and more efficient in the fight against corruption. Do less of media trial and media dramaturgy. And let me also say, I stated in my response to the question by Steve that we have the Treasury single account. That was signed into law, effectively given governmental order by the immediate, the penultimate government, and then Buhari gave vent to it. What is happening to it? How come so much money is being taken allegedly by one minister, the other DG, the other PAMSEC? How come? We have the BVN. Let me bury this in, please. We have the BVN, and then how come there are multiple accounts and monies going from one account to the other and nothing is being done? So I am tired. I'm not excited by what investigators do. I think that Mr. President must step into the fray and push. That's what Nigerians want. Effectively, efficiently, and effectually push for a fight against corruption that is less of drama and dramaturgy and more of discreet and professional protocol.
Definitely. And if we're speaking about the president pushing in this fight against corruption, which is a moral imperative in this country, do you think it's possible for the president to convincingly convey his commitment to combating that corruption when his chief of staff, Honorable Femi Gbajabiamila, has been embroidered in numerous corruption allegations, from purported involvement in the Emefiele probe to the Beta Edu scandal? Do you think the president needs to address these corruption issues within his administration before the public can perceive his anti-corruption efforts as genuine?
In answering this question, I would put before the world and indeed our viewers three posers. The Chief of Staff to the President is alleged to have been involved in 1, 2, 3, 4 issues of corruption, quote and unquote. The special investigator is dancing in the market square with this information. Now, what are the figures? How deeply are these issues being investigated? Are we being regaled because they understand and think that Nigerians, oh, Nigerians did not want the APC, Nigerians did not want Mr. President, so Nigerians are more inclined to hearing different tales. Nigerians want to hear that Mr. ABC murdered their sister yesterday and so must be nailed to the cross or put to the guillotine. Is that what is happening? Are we being regaled by the investigators or the agencies with facts and figures that are unverifiable? Are we being treated to a theatrics, or is it about aesthetics? I think that the time has come for Mr. President, if he truly wants to fight corruption, to appoint people and persons who will be discreet in the handling of the fight against corruption. And let us see convictions. Let us see recovery of funds. Let us see valid accounts to which funds have been paid to. If you're telling me that 4 trillion has been paid, because in so many of these papers flying around, we see accounts. I'll give you a practical instance. There are issues regarding the MPC, and I have seen accounts to which funds have been paid to. Now, if you have recovered 4 trillion from the immediate past CBN governor, show us the account, federal government account to which has been paid for before you go to the market square. If you are alleging that the Chief of Staff to the President is involved in larceny and corruptible actions whilst whilst serving as the Chief of Staff, then let us see the figures and let us add up the figures. Effectively, I think that what we must do as the media, the civil society, and those who truly love our country is to tell those who operate as either whistleblowers, those who operate as corruption czars, those who are fighting corruption at the level of the EFCC and the ICPC, and those who are working as special investigators, to do one thing for us. Get to the roots. Do not regale us with media theatrics like obtained under, interestingly, he's the Chief of Staff to the President today, the National Security Advisor, Ribadu. We saw Lamode, we saw Waziri, we saw Magun, we saw, at the end of the day, the anti-corruption czars ended up being indicted. So I think that what is important here, going forward, and in line with your question, is that Mr. President begins an overhaul of the anti-corruption protocol. And we have the anti-corruption agency reworked to professionally and effectively handle the brief. And then we want to see more of monuments of reference. We should be able to say, so and so governor, so and so minister, so and so DG or whatever have been tried, found guilty and convicted. That's what Nigerians want to hear and see. All right. We want monuments of reference and monuments of deterrence. I'm not enamored by this dance macabre or dramas and dramaturgy regarding corruption and anti-corruption.
All right, Chris, two quick questions before we let you go, but I'll appreciate if you also, answer with speed. First is that the special advisor to the president, as you know, on policy and coordination, Adiza Bala Usman, has said that the president would let go of non-performing ministers. First question will be that we do not know when that will happen, but when it does happen, do you think that those, of course, who have who are tainted by corruption should be part of those that should get the boot. That's one. And secondly, what do you make of the sort of a thing that the opposition is doing, like your good self, like what the former Vice President Atiku Abubakar has done in that, open letter to President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, asking pertinent questions about the $3 billion that was borrowed. I think about 2-point-something billion out of it has been cashed from Afrexim to stabilize the Naira. The Naira isn't stabilizing, it's getting worse. We will still go for the remaining 1 billion plus. But there are questions as to the SPV, as to how much are we going to repay and things like that. What are your thoughts in quick, sentences to the sort of interventions that the key opposition figures are making on corruption and anti-corruption war?
Steve almost always, very characteristically, you like to ambush me, but I'll try. Your question didn't come with speed. I'll make my answers come with speed. First, I think that the opposition, I'm starting with your second question, I think that the opposition must continue to do what it's doing. Steve, I have a quotable quote that I put in the public sphere. Opposition and criticism is actually the highest form of patriotism. I think that I commend what the former vice president is doing. Kudos to what he's doing. Kudos to what Peter Gregory Obi is doing and what the Country First, my body, is doing. We want a country that works, and I want Mr. President to see this as a reality. Critical opposition, constructive opposition and criticism is actually one of the highest forms of patriotism. So that must continue. And then, Steve, regarding how we, if I get your first question correctly, regarding how we
non-performing ministers that will go.
The performance. Regarding how we perceive the performance of ministers, regarding how like what Hadiza Bala said, that Mr. President would drop non-performing ministers. I think that the major issue should be drop first ministers who are manifestly proven to be corrupt. Then go ahead to lay a template, because it's still a bit less than 1 year of this administration. Give marching orders to those who are still in cabinet and ensure that they are in service, efficient, effective, and effectual. And lastly, Steve, one very important thing we must do is understand that it's not just about the ministers. One major thing bothers and harasses every Nigerian: the orgy of violence, the spate of human barbecues across our country. So those who must be called to order, or perhaps shown the way out, are those who superintend the security architecture. I think the basic reasons for which government and governments exist is to protect lives and properties. So Mr. President must look strongly at that area. We live in Abuja, Steve. Abuja, until very recently, has been relatively safe. Today, the orgy of violence, banditry, kidnap for ransom has become laissez-faire, has become the daily occurrence in Abuja. And I think that the time has come for Mr. President to give marching orders to those who superintend our security architecture. And besides, I also think that he must give marching orders to those who are ministers of the Federal Republic and ensure that our country works.
All right,
that's the minimum expectations of the Nigerian people.
Definitely, minimum expectations. Of course, things have to work. Thank you so much for this insightful conversation, Professor Chris Nwaokobia, who is the lawyer and convener of the Country First movement.